what that is? Discipline. Selfish.
No joke. We're legitimate.
Let's fucking do this. Then do it. Do it 100%, because I'm trying to.
We recognize that we are limitless.
You gotta be a champion to become a champion, right? Winning is a habit because we create habits that lead to good execution and success.
Welcome to the special European edition of the Coaches Show. My name is Ryan Gray, coach of AC Diesel, and my co-host today is Clint Moore, formerly of Lucky 15s and current professional player for Baltimore Revo and the NXL Europe coordinator for the Coaches Show. Clint, who are our guests today?
Hi, our guest today, Matt Schmidt, the coach of London Attrition, who's added several new weapons in his off-season, and Goran Ahs of Stockholm Joy Division, whose second place finished at the NXL Europe, and then the opportunity to play in the World Cup in 2023. Ryan and I will get into the off-season event prep and plans for the 24 season.
Yeah, man. All right. Well, before we jump in with Matt, congratulations on your new professional team here in the United States.
Thank you.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about that, what that process looked like. You had a few offers and opportunities, and what made Baltimore Revo the choice?
Well, since World Cup, I'd been in contact with 3 or 4 pro teams over in America, trying to find myself a spot for this season. Revo was one of them. I'd been talking to Todd from Aftershock, Aftermath, and the Ironmen. Ironmen didn't really come off, nor did the Aftermath. Aftershock had given me the opportunity to go over and trial with them, and then the Revo one, they was more interested in me for this season. There was lots of communication going back and forth, and after speaking to the owner and the coach, it just felt like it was the right fit for me. They'd lost 2 key players, so they're on a bit of a rebuild, and I just thought, yeah, this is a great opportunity for me to come into the NXL and show the NXL what I can do.
Yeah. So what made you make the decision to kind of step away from Lucky 15s and then transition into an American team?
I'd always said to Lucky 15s at the start of last season, this would be my last season for the Lucky 15s. So it was common knowledge that I was leaving at the end of the year. Obviously, over the last 3-4 years, I've been a player coach, and I kind of wanted to get myself away from that and concentrate on myself more as a player. Yeah. And I wanted to test myself in the biggest league in the world. But I also wanted somebody to coach me and for me to test myself more as a player and with better players and see what the outcome can be at the end of the year.
Yeah. And I just noticed too that you step away and then Lucky 15s bring in my opinion, maybe one of the best player coaches who's just going to be a coach for Lucky 15s in Marcelo Marcotte. So
it's fantastic on that. That for me will be the difference between them finishing first and second is Marcelo coaching. You could take 2 of the best players out of that team, put in a coach like Marcelo, and he'll get more out of the players which are on that squad, which could give you that win. So if they don't win an event this year, I kind of feel it'll be a bad year for them in Europe. Because they've got all the tools, and I'm super happy Marcelo's on the team, and I wish them the luck, all the best luck in the world for this season.
He's definitely going to be helpful. The show we had with him thus far has been one of my favorites, just because he's so intelligent about the way he talks about the game, the way he sees it from a coaching perspective, and having been a coach in Europe. I'm really excited just to have another really good mind there. that when he starts to the process of tournament preparation and the things he's going to do to help break down the field, that'll spread, right? So I think a lot of the teams in the UK, not just the Lucky 15s, will have benefit from him being there.
Definitely, 100%. And because from what I've heard is he's coming to the UK the week before NXL Europe events, so he'll be spending time with the 15s in the UK, and then obviously you've got the other UK teams, Firm, Attrition. They'll be floating around, drawing off of his knowledge. It's fantastic for UK paintball.
Yeah, it's good. All right. Well, without further ado, let's bring Matt in, talk about one of those UK teams, London Attrition. Hello, Matt.
Hello, Ryan. Hello, Clint. How are we?
Hi, good. Yourself?
Yes, very well, thank you. Very well, and thank you for inviting me on the show. It's been a great watch since you started, so good work. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, man. We appreciate the support and the listens, and it's been a lot of fun. Mike and I have really enjoyed this process and doing what we're doing today with this European edition. We're hoping to do more of these kinds of things to help shed some light on European paintball and really highlight a lot of the things that are happening over there. We've kind of said it multiple times on shows throughout, these first 12 to 15 episodes that, we really want to be a catalyst to help to grow European paintball from both a coaching perspective, but then also just providing feedback about how the U.S. has been able to help grow some of these younger teams and get developmental things going, which you're doing a great job. And we're going to kind of talk about some of those developmental things you're doing. Before we jump into that, let's talk a little bit about the last couple of years with London Attrition. So in the past 3 seasons, London Attrition has taken an 8th place in the year that we had one event, which was the post-COVID year. And then 15th place in 2022, and then 16th place last year. And I know you haven't been around for all 3 of those years. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. I only got offered the role a week before the first event last year, so it was all very last minute. Didn't have any pre-season or any preparation with the guys really. So it was straight into the first event, which was a bit of an eye-opener, I must say.
Yeah. Anytime you take over a new group, especially coming in a week prior, that's a challenge for sure. That's a challenge.
Yeah.
So what grade would you give your group's performance from last year?
Maybe a C or a D. It was a challenging time. We lost 2 players straight after the first event. So we had some guest players come in, and they did a good job for us. And of course, I was getting to know the group. And after the group I had previously, so I was coaching the London Tigers beforehand in the CPPS, and it was a completely different group. And yes, it's amazing how 2 groups can be so different, So it was a completely different role.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about some of the roster changes you've made. You mentioned there was a little bit of chaos in the roster even last year. And so this year, during the offseason, you guys have made some changes, hopefully to solidify some of those roster chaos things that occurred last year. So you pick up Jake and Jason Wheeler.
Yep.
You pick up Rittenhouse, so Brandon, and then you pick up Mikey Arena. So you've got 4 new guys coming in, and I assume they're committed for the whole season?
Yeah, we got Mikey, obviously only for NXL, but hopefully he might be able to play one of the CPPSs, which I think is the week before the first NXL. So hoping to get him in a bit earlier if we can work the logistics out. But generally, Mike will be obviously for the NXL, and then obviously we'll have a slightly smaller squad for the CPPS. But yeah, they're all committed, all looking raring to go. So it's looking promising, I think.
So let's talk about the roster a little bit from last year. So you had Rory, Tony, Kristen, Thomas, Talfrin, Sam, Keats and Sam Price, Harry Schmidt, and then Mikey Arena from the last event. So of those guys, we know Mikey's going to be around. Who else is staying from that roster?
So we have Harry, Taufrin, Sam Price, and Rory are staying.
Okay.
We've got one other player, Karim, who's staying, but he's injured. He did his ACL. It was the actual practice with you guys before the second round in Birmingham. You know, when we practiced with you at FSU.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
So he's in and around the squad and will be assisting me for scouting. And obviously, one thing I noticed being in the World Cup, you guys have got a much bigger coaching staff, and there's 3 or 4 people at least with each team, whereas before it was last season, it's basically just been me. And with the changes we've made, an extra pair of hands will be much welcome. So.
Yeah, it's interesting. You were talking about the size of the coaching staff. Last year it was just me. I was kind of by myself coaching FSU, and then by myself with Notorious. And like you, I would look around and I'm like, man, I'm outnumbered. Like that team has 3 guys who are up here statting, and none of them are players. So I think that anytime that you can have additional help, especially when you're talking about statting and how you're going to track your opponents, is critical. It's critical. So let's skip ahead a little bit because you brought that up. So how do you use stats, and what are you statting?
Well, up until last year or this year, I've used what I sort of invented myself, the old heat map. 1-1-1, 2-2-2. With some, arrows for which lanes they're shooting on the break, which, as you know, can become very messy very quickly. So I was reintroduced to Kevin of the SK. I know him from playing against him in Dynasty back in the day when I was on Shock. So I got reacquainted with Kevin, and he shared his statting sheet with me, which was obviously very, very useful. So we've taken that as a base and made it our own, and obviously changed the bunker names. So I'm trying to track, obviously, breakouts, the secondary moves, whether they're going in low, whether they're going in high, what lanes they're shooting, and then making notes on each one. So over the off-season, I've gone over our last event in Paris and scouted all of our games again, just to get some practice with the sheets. I've got some tweaks to make, but yes, I'm getting the hang of it now, and it's making a lot of sense. So, and you can actually see it just by looking at it. It is. At first, you wouldn't have thought it'd be that much different, but it is a lot cleaner and a lot easier, and you get a lot more information. So, yeah, thanks for that.
Yeah, he introduced me to that in Drew as I was statting for the USA national teams. And when I first looked down at it, I was like, man, looks like the most chaotic mess I've ever seen. And then as I started using it, I kind of fell in love with it. I was like, this is so much more simple because I would stat a lot like you were talking about, where I would put a 1, 2, 3 based on which play, which point it was. I would have like a 1, and then I put a little arrow in there for which way he was shooting out of the spot. And if I could dictate, kind of determine which space he was shooting, I'd put a note. It got really chaotic. Whereas now you can just, did he hip slide? You can put an H in the spot he went into, and then you can literally put a symbol for which bunker he's shooting at. It's so much easier. So that's great. So you've adopted SK's statting style, or statting pages, I should say. And then how do you use that information when you get done statting a match? What's next for you? What do you do then?
Well, once we get an overall gist, obviously also the time is something you mentioned. Obviously, with our time in World Cup, we spent the time together, and obviously having the time on there also is very important. So you can make an educated guess, if you like, at what's coming next. But I want us to try and stay ahead of the game and try and dominate and have them react to what we're doing. But obviously, we'll have some ideas of how they react in certain situations, which I think will be very helpful.
Yeah, I think like players, all coaches have tendencies, right? So the more stats and tracking we can do throughout a year, you know, when you get to that third event and you've seen a group play 6 matches or so per event, if they're a Sunday team, you can begin to pick up on some of those tendencies. So yeah, that's the time is really important. Clint, do you want to ask the next question?
Where are we? Sorry, I was really listening to that and taking notes myself. So going forward for this year, obviously you've got new players on the team. How do you feel, and where do you reckon you'll be using your new players, the new weapons of the team? You know, sorry, go on.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, Mikey speaks for himself. I mean, the experience he brings and his sheer force of personality really showed and paid off in Paris for us. We actually won 2 games, although we just missed the cut. So he's going to be very important. It was very tight, yeah. We had a great second day, but our first day we lost, I think, breakout 6-3, which I think it was 1 point in it, which knocked us out. So it was, from that respect, disappointing. But we went from winning no games in the first event to winning 1 game in the second event, and then winning 2 and just missing out in the third. So we made steady progress throughout the season. But going back to Mikey, obviously, I mean, his best spot is in the snake, but I mean, you can use him anywhere on the field, you know, up the middle. He played in the bags. He was all over the place. So it's really someone for the guys to watch and learn from, you know, his whole approach to pre-game, the warm-up.
His experience.
The way he moves, the experience. I mean, Rory is generally, obviously, he's a great up-and-coming young player who plays the snake. So he I think he learned a lot from Mike. And obviously that's the benefits of bringing someone like Mike in. We had a very young sort of 25-year-old average squad last year. And I think it showed in our previous 2 events where we failed to, we were in positions to level games up, to possibly win games. And our decision-making at times left a, you know, just naivety really. But again, that comes with experience. So, yeah, Mikey obviously being heavy in the state.
Yes, sorry there to interrupt, but you've got so much more experience this year you've got Jason back, Jason Wheeler. You know, he's been pro for almost 20 years, I think. His brother Jake's back. He's been around paintball a long time now, so he's another experienced player. So you've had that young team last year, and then this year you've kind of still kept your young team, but you've brought in so much more experience to push you forward for this season.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we needed to do. And also we lost Tony Brandon's a co-owner of the team and also plays, and he was our solid sort of 3, a great break shooter. So we had to replace him. So we've got Jake and we've got Al Maker, who's, you know, another wealth of experience, great on the break, great break shooting. So we've sort of replaced him with those 2. And then of course we've got Jason, who can play the bags. He can play up through the middle. And he brings a lot of experience in helping us close games out and close points out, which is where we really let ourselves down, I think, in one major point last year. So I think we've plugged those gaps. And we've got, you know, attacking capabilities all over the field now. We've got young Harry on the bags. He's only going to get better and better. Rory and Mikey in the snake for NXL. And then obviously we've got a bit of an unknown in Brandon, Rittenhouse. Obviously he came and contacted us, and I've seen some videos and I've spoken to him, and I saw him we had a little run out last week. So I think if we can get him back up to speed, I think he's got some great experience for us as well. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. We've got some good versatility there, a lot of 1s, and, you know, a lot of guys can play the 1, they can play the 2, and I want them to be able to leapfrog each other and be, you know, because I think, you know, launching from sort of behind the front guy is quite an important weapon to have in the pocket. So yeah, we've got some good versatility and some guys that can actually read the game and hopefully improve us where we were lacking last year.
I think another important note about those guys that you brought in is mentality, right? Like you're bringing in some seasoned guys who have a mentality of the goal is different than expectation. And what I mean by that is where you guys last year may have had a goal where you're going to go into an event and say, hey, we're going to try to win the first point, and then we're going to try to win the first match. And then you had a bunch of these smaller micro goals where for some of these guys you're bringing in, especially a player like Mikey, those are expectations, right? And so the expectation is to be playing on Sunday. The goal for them is probably playing the last game on Sunday, right? So I think you've got a mentality, a group that's going to have a different mentality this year because they're so used to playing late on Sunday, right? I know Jason and Jake both played with a team here in America last year that had some challenges and some struggles. And I think Jason also played with Gladiatori, which also had some challenges last year, didn't necessarily have a great season. But again, I think their expectation is to be playing on Sunday, and then goal to be more looking toward being alive, playing in that last game of the tournament. So really excited for you. You've got some really talented guys coming in. So one of the other things I noticed, and I assume that you did this because of maybe some of the roster chaos that you've had. You can obviously expound on it, but I noticed you guys are starting some divisional teams. Looks like there was, and probably for the CPPS and then maybe Drew, but looks like you're starting kind of a feeder program. So talk to us a little bit about how that's going to work.
Yeah, I mean, it's mainly with another team called Somank, but they've got a Div 2 and a Div 3 or Div 4 team. So we will be, we do struggle with teams to practice against here. The 3 teams that play NXL, I can't seem to get a practice against them. So we're actually we're taking a leaf from the Paintball Fit guy when he came on and said that they only practice against Div 3 and 4 teams. I was like, Bing, excellent. That's a great idea. So we'll be practicing against the Div 2 team and even the Div 3 team, but obviously telling them what we're going to do, how we're going to do it, and hopefully they can make our life as difficult as possible. They'll learn off that. We'll learn off it as well. So, we'll give it a go and see how it goes and develop it from there.
So what is your involvement then with those divisional teams? Do you coach any of those teams, or is this another program that you're kind of partnering with so that you always have somebody to spar with?
Yeah, I play on the 10-man team there. They play 10-man as well, the ECPL. So I still play 10-man with them, which I love, and Harry plays on it as well. It's the only chance I get to play alongside him. So, but yeah, I know the guys really well, and it kind of works. So we're sort of partnering together really, and hopefully, like I say, get some good practices in and take a leaf out of Mr. Paintball Fit's book. And if it's good enough for them, I don't see why it shouldn't work for us here,
Yeah.
I just want the listeners know Harry is Matt's son. So Matt keeps referring to Harry, and people are going to go, "Well, who's this Harry kid?" It's Matt's son.
Right, yeah.
So just for the listeners out there.
One of the other things, Clint, why don't you tell our American listeners what the bags are?
The bag's Dorito bag. It's a tea bag, which is the shape of a Dorito, as you call it.
When I started playing in Europe back in 2003 or 4, played my first event, and I kept hearing these like Teabag 1 and Teabag 2 and Teabag 3, and I had no idea what they were talking about. And it was one of the London Tigers guys. I finally just asked him, I said, "Hey, what is this teabag thing?" And he was like, "Well, it's the triangles on the other side of the field, not on the snake side of the field." And I was like, "The Doritos?" And he was like, "No, it's shaped like a teabag. Like a tea bag." And I was like, I get it, but I don't we don't drink that much tea, so I don't know what you're talking about. So, even some of the young guys that came over last year with us to Europe were like, "What are these guys yelling? What's a bag? What are they talking about?" So you do some other things, some other coaching in the UK. You're involved with the with the Great Britain national team. Which one of those teams do you coach, and what are your responsibilities there?
So I was asked to, obviously Harry got on the under-19s last year. And then after that, they asked me to step in and coach. So last year, was a bit difficult because I had a hip replacement. Literally got told I was going in for it a week after I accepted the role. So, and it was a month before Drew, so we didn't really have a lot of time to prepare. So this year, the year just gone 23, we decided to try and give us some time to practice, and we pulled the trials forward to April last year to give us a good time to try and practice. And Ledsy actually got us the BKI sponsorship, so we got access to the BKI platform, which was the first proper. I didn't even know it existed before. Obviously, Ledsy told us about it, and that was my first. Yeah, I did the coaches course on that, which I found very, very useful. So, just trying to integrate some of that and what I've learned at the Cup, and just trying to integrate bits and bobs from here and there and see what works for us,
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, the BKI stuff is fantastic. It's really, really good. Anthony and all the professors over there have done an excellent job, right? And having a resource like that for anybody, whether you're a player or a coach, even as a coach, I get a ton of stuff out of the player drills. It's things that I can integrate into. If I see a player who's deficient at something, it's really easy for me to jump in, pull a couple of drills out. Hey, go do these things. The BKI program is fantastic. And anybody who's not doing it and you have access to it, you're just putting yourself at a deficiency. So,
we've obviously got a very small pool of players here to pick from. So, again, we've lost another 3 or 4 from this year. I mean, we had obviously USA first game, which was actually close, and it was 4-2 we lost, and then we had France the next game. So we had some tough games. We threw away the game against Belgium. We ended up drawing when we should have won that. And then the last game, I basically put in the 5 that are going to be eligible to play this year. Some of them hadn't really got a game because, like little Alfie's only 14. So I put them all in against Sweden. We lost again, but it was invaluable experience for them going into this season. So, basically coaching and trying to do what I can for them, really.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, Clint. No, Clint, go.
I was going to say, I would like to ask you a question, Matt, on as a coach, how do you change your mindset from coaching under 19s to a pro team in the NXL Europe? Is your mindset different on how you talk to the players, what information you give the players, and how you react to your feedback from the players?
Yeah, again, it's a completely different kettle of fish, which my mind was open to last year. So, they need a lot more help, a lot more guidance. How good I am at that, obviously switching from one to the other, I'm not so sure. But yes, it was definitely an eye-opener. A lot more basics. There's a lot more drills they need to be doing. And then, again, it's just experience, These guys are quite young, so... but they're very keen and they listen. If you compare it to London Tigers, when I was coaching those guys, you didn't really have to tell them how to play paintball. They knew exactly what they were doing, and you could send them. It was more about trying to stop them ripping each other apart than trying to, play paintball. So yes, it's the changing group is quite is something you've got to try and get used to, but. Hopefully, I helped them out. I tried focusing on fitness, technique, and obviously some game management. But obviously, with limited time with them, it's difficult. But hopefully we'll try and pick up a couple more this year and see what we can do.
I don't know if you listened to the show we had with Shallow Almeida on, who talked about how he's using technology. Uses Zoom in a way to help with some of those training things that you can be doing outside of the paintball field. Have you thought about maybe integrating some biweekly sessions or something to help maybe keep the guys connected? And then it's really, I think for you and the national team might be more of an accountability piece even.
Yeah. So Harry actually did the Russian Legion program in 2020 in lockdown with the Tigers. And I believe that is what accelerated his development. So, they were on Zoom twice a week. And that accelerated his development, massively. So London Attrition, we are going to be doing some online sessions, because obviously the time we have together as a team is pretty precious. So if guys need to work on their technique and their drills, then I think they should be doing some bits at home in the week. So we've got practice this weekend coming up. So that is something I'll be organising and telling them that, we can't use all the team time to do individual technique and training. We need to be working together as a team. So last year I gave them the under 19s. That is, they all had access to BKI, and I gave them what I wanted them to do. We struggled to get everyone together regularly, so I gave them the drills I wanted them to do. Whether they actually, I think a few of them did, but I think there was a few there that were, saying they were doing them, but I very much doubt they were actually taking advantage of it, which it's disappointing in a way, but yeah, it's definitely advantageous to do. Like I say, Harry's development rocketed when he did that Russian Legion program.
Yeah, I could see those Zoom sessions maybe being an opportunity again for accountability, where you can say, hey, which lesson did you do this week? Which one did you do, and tell me a little bit about it. And, you can always go back and watch it and see if they actually did. The other thing too, is they've got to be accountable to themselves, right? They've got to want to do it,
Yes, exactly.
So thinking about 2024, what is your preparation? So you guys get the layout 4 weeks out from the event. What is that preparation as you prepare to go play event number 1? What does that preparation look like for you?
Well, we'll be playing, obviously, we'll be practicing before the layout comes out. So we're starting this weekend, and it's every couple of weeks. We have the whole schedule for the year is mapped out now. Everyone has that, so there's no excuses. I think we have a CPPS, which will run the same layout the week before the first event, I think. And then I think it's 2 weeks before the event. So we'll have some practices against hopefully some other teams, and we'll hook some practices up. Obviously we've got 8 or 9 ourselves, so we can have 4 on 4 and do some short points, like we did with you, some 30-second points, to really nail in the breakout and get to learn the field, see where we can push the envelope a little bit, and what works and what doesn't, and then start bringing in another team to practice and scrim against further down the line,
Yeah. So when you talk about like these drills and things you guys are going to do, looking at the breakouts, like what are you trying to get from those things? So if you do a 30-second breakout and you do that for an hour, what are you trying to get from that?
Well, 1 minute I'll some say 3 or 4 breakouts on a go. I say, right, let's push the snake side and let's see what breaks. How can we get up that snake as quick as possible? What's the best route in there? Where's the 2 best supporting him to go? And likewise, then we can switch to the bag side, and then maybe up the middle, and we can work out the best route, the best combinations. Because obviously, I've been listening to a lot of people over the last 2 months, and I think we've always pigeonholed players into a Dorito player or a snake player or a center player. And I think with all the new beams coming in, I think everyone's going to have to get comfortable on their belly. So I want all the guys to interchange in the early layout practices, so we can mix the combinations up and we can see exactly which combination works. And I think that way players don't get bored either. If you're always playing the same side, and the layout may suddenly change, but I think it keeps people on their toes and keeps players on their toes, and you've got more rounded players if they're a bit more versatile, and they can play the 2, they can play the 1, they can play the bags. Like I say, they might start on the Dorito side and they might end up over in the snake. So it's important that everyone gets the experience from all over the field. So that's another change that we'll be making this year. Obviously, having listened to certain people on the show. So it's been really informative.
Thank you. That's great.
No problem.
Yeah, that's great. And the reason I'm asking the question is, as you've heard the show, sounds like you've listened quite a bit. It's important to us that we help to provide some mental perspective about when, as a coach, if I create a drill and I ask my players to do something, there's a why, right? It's not just that we're going out to try to figure out who we can shoot off the break. But it's also, like you mentioned, if I'm going to run to the snake, I want to look at each one of the threat positions. Like if I'm in this gap, who's my biggest threat? If I'm in this gap, who's my biggest threat? And then if I go a different route, the same thing. And then what happens as a coach? Like what happens if I send a guy to the corner first and then I send the guy underneath? Which one of these threats goes away, or can I get their gun high? So yeah, that's those things you're talking about are really important. So when you don't have a layout, right, you're doing these practices without just random layouts. Are you doing communication things from an off-season look, or are you really looking to try to find like maybe what your combinations of guys could potentially be on each side? Like what are you doing this off-season? And then we'll jump back to my original question, but what are you kind of doing during these drills in the off-season?
So I want to obviously work on where we fell down last year. So some situational, so against you guys in the second time we played you, we got it back. We were 3-0 down. We got it back to 4-3. We had a minute and a half to win, to level the game up. We won the breakout. We had all the spots. I think at one point we may have been 4-2, and we should have closed the game out, and we didn't. Yeah. So there's a lot of points for the guys to learn. So communication, obviously teamwork, working out, reading the field. That's the most important things for me, and working out obviously the combinations that work. So we've got a lot of new faces there. So one thing I'll be doing this weekend is the guys that were on that point against you guys, I'll have them try and recreate that and see if they can actually, work it out for themselves, obviously give them some help, and then build their confidence and try and get them working together more as a team. And the comms were good in some points and bad in the others, so we had some great points and we had some really poor points. So consistency is also, and keeping the guys' performance level and communication level at a consistent rate would be obviously another thing we want to try and aim to achieve.
Yeah, good. Can I give you some advice?
Please do. I take it. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So create some 6-minute scenarios, meaning you're only going to play out the last 6 minutes of the match.
Yeah.
But put a scenario around it. We're going to start the 6 minutes down 1. Okay. Now what do we have to do with 6 minutes left? And it is field layout dependent. So if you have a layout where you can play 3 points in 6 minutes, your players need to be cognizant of the fact that they have time. Right. There's plenty of space inside of the match that's remaining in order for you to get the match back. But what happens if we go down another point? Now what? And then what happens if we're up 1, right? So your next scenario, now we're up 1. How do we hold it or potentially go get another point to improve our margin? And start instilling these time urgencies in them where they understand like, hey, if we're up 1 or we're even, at what point in the match, time-wise, if there's a minute left, 45 seconds, whatever the case may be, at what point in the match do we need to know? Are we going to hold for overtime based on the position that they're in? Maybe we're a body down. But if we're 2 bodies up and there's 1 minute left, at what point do we want to go win the point? Because we don't want to go too early and leave them an opportunity to tie the game if we fail, right?
Yep.
But we also don't want to go too late and potentially not have an opportunity to either win or make sure that we get to play for overtime, right? And so instilling some of those time frame things that occur is really important. And it also puts your group in a position where they're pretty uncomfortable. If I'll tell you the thing that you guys did in that match against us is they came staggered through the same space. They didn't. You guys didn't launch a guy through the middle and then immediately launch a guy down the Dorito, right? Within a couple of seconds. You had 3 guys who basically all released through the middle in the same space and let one guy shoot them, right? So if you have it staggered where the guy on the edge, he's going to, wrap and take a job basically. And then the guy comes through the middle, he wraps on the other guy. He's now taking a job on the inside of the guy who can kill someone. And then your third guy comes through the middle space between the 2 of them and either takes one of those jobs over or he goes and takes a player, right? You guys it didn't have the communication to a point where there was a plan, right? A thought process of, okay, if they're in these two spaces and we're in these spaces, how do we make sure that we can put ourselves in a position where two guys can be on a job and the other two guys can help go win the point, or take a job from an outside guy and then give it back, take it and give it back. You could just tell there wasn't really a plan around, hey, we've got this much time left. We need to have a plan, right? At this point in the game, with 45 seconds left or 30 seconds, whatever the case may be, if we're in these spaces, this is how we're going to close the game, right? And I honestly thought we were about to go to overtime, right? I thought for sure, like, the guy down the Dorito side is going to put himself in a position where he's going to wrap, put the guy in. We had a guy in the snake corner. He's going to wrap, put the guy in the snake corner, and then the guy's just going to walk through the middle of the field, or he's going to wrap, put our Dorito guy away, and then the next guy is going to come through the middle of that. We're probably done here. I think we were in a 2-on-4 with a guy in the Dorito 2 and a guy in the snake side corner. So, but doing those kind of putting those guys back in that exact situation, and then put a time on it and talk about before the match or before you do the drill, hey, if they're in these spots, how do we do this correctly? And then at what point do you go? At what point do you need to have this plan played out? And at what point can we win the point and then or potentially get 2 points where we don't have to go to overtime? And at what point in the game do we know we have to win the point to go to overtime? So if there's a minute and a half left and we've shot 2 guys off the break, can we go get 2? Maybe. If there's a minute and a half left and we're even, now how do we go get this point to get to overtime? Right? So it helps them to start getting in the mind frame of what happens the next time we're in this situation.
Yeah. So that's why I want to revisit that situation and see how we go and develop from there, you know?
Yeah. I think you're on the right track. You certainly have some great pieces. Your players
kind of looking on the team last year, it was quite an inexperienced team. And as you said earlier, Matt, that, you got kind of thrown into the coaching quite short notice. I think this year, you've got such a good building block. You've got a solid foundation now. You've been coaching the team for 8-9 months. You've brought in experienced players, but you've still kept some of the youth there and the aggression and a talent. So I feel this year, I think you've got everything there. You've got a good foundation. You seem to have got your training schedule, your mindset right. You've brought your players in. So it's going to be an interesting year, and I'm looking forward to seeing you guys and on how you do in the NXL this year. It's going to be good.
Yeah, there's a good feeling amongst the guys. They're all raring to go. I feel best prepared I have been going into a season. So we've just got to put those pieces together and hopefully it will, like I say, start making regular Sundays and then learn to, navigate our way through the Sundays, because obviously I was there as a player, and it does take a while to learn how to get yourself through a Sunday, So that'll be the next stage. But
like from the past experience, it's learning how to win. You go through a season, and if you don't win, you kind of get in that habit of you're just there and you don't win. But you need to break that habit and learn how to win, because once you start to win, winning becomes easier. It's a strange saying, and it's in all sports, that once you start winning, it becomes easy. Once you make that first Sunday, then you make Sunday every event. Once you make that semi-finals, quarterfinals, finals, then you find it just snowballs on, and then great things happen. So
and winning is addictive, right? So hopefully once they get that buzz, and so even when you was talking about the one-on-ones, we do one-on-ones. I pull the random. Everyone gets a ball out of the hat, and I say 8 versus 2 or whatever. But your call-out idea was really good, and having some little, a bag of sweets for them to win and try and get some competitiveness amongst them, and like you say, create that winning mentality as much as we possibly can only be a help.
There's an amazing thing that occurs when faith meets expectation. And what I mean by that is when you have an expectation of something happening, and then you get faith because of the experiences that you've had to reach the expectation, when those two align, it's a pretty special thing, because now that faith or that expectation that you had, now you have the experience that gives you faith that it can be done and replicated over and over and over again. It becomes you get into this space of scale where you understand, not only are we really good and we have the ability to do this, but we haven't met our ceiling yet, right? Now, there's two things that can happen. Some groups get to a point where they get really good and they get comfortable because they're just good enough, right? Yeah. And then other groups, they get to a place where they're like, oh my God, this is the best feeling I've ever had. I want to do this as much as possible. We got to work our ass off to make sure that we don't fall, right? But we get to stay on top. Mike Jeffries, Clint's new coach, kind of talked about the dynasty mindset, right? It's the expectation when they get to an event that they're going to win, right? And they also have the faith, because of their experiences, to believe that they're going to, right? Like there's a special thing that happens when faith gets to align with expectation that creates a pretty fun environment, right? So what do you think about, like, so the condition of paintball in Europe right now, it seems like it's really good, right? It seems like the vibe is good. The energy, it seems like it's better than it's been in a while, certainly since COVID kind of destroyed it at last. Do you think we're back in a place where European paintball is growing again?
I don't know. I hope so. Obviously, we're trying to do as much as we can in England. I've got my youngest son, Oscar's 10, and he's got a little group now. We've got a little group with them. There's about 6 or 7 of them now. So obviously, I'll start getting them out regularly, and hopefully we can maybe enter them into break-in or break-out at CBPS, the entry-level division, in a year or two. And we've got some really good clubs, some teams like Firm and SAD, who do a great job of, really developing and bringing in. And obviously Mayhem Tigers as well. They do a great job of bringing in, and they have a proper pathway for young players to go into and start at a decent level and then make their way up. And I think Woods is also a good place for young players to start, because I think they do learn a lot of field craft, and it's a bit more forgiving than airball, isn't it? It gives them a little bit more time to develop, and I think that again it helped Harry a lot in the early days playing some Woods and then moving into obviously Super Airball. So we have some more clubs and starting and since having the sites to try and promote grassroots and trying to get people back to play regular, really. And we've all got our part to play in that. So hopefully things are turning around. But as a whole, I don't know, Ryan, is the answer.
Yeah, it's more just opinion, right? Like, I'm not asking you for really analytical numbers, just like, you've been around a long time. You've gone through the evolutions of kind of, there's an energy, I think that I know I feel when I go to events or when I go to paintball parks. There's an energy that you feel that you can tell within a few minutes of being there. This is a place that can grow people. This is a place that can grow players, because the energy is really good. You don't have, maybe the field team, right? The team that is kind of sponsored by the field, dominating all the space on the field, dominating what's happening from a drill perspective. They're open-minded and really want to be helpful, right? Which I think is really important to the growth process. And so we've been saying this the last couple of years at World Cup, going to that event, in 2022, I kind of mentioned it then. I was like, man, the energy here feels like the mid 2000s of paintball. And then again, this year in 2023, I think it was even better. It may have been the best energy that I've ever really felt at a World Cup. And keep in mind, Drew was also kind of had that energy. It was like the players. I saw a lot of people walking around with big smiles on their faces, and everybody is chatting around the park. It wasn't like around the venue. It wasn't. I think we went through a period where people got really selfish, right? They got into this space where they were so focused on themselves and what they were doing that they kind of lost track of what makes our game beautiful, which is the fact that 3 to 5 times a year, I get to pick up conversations that I had with somebody at the last event, and we literally pick up where we left off. We become this kind of family away from our families because we spend so much damn time with each other. So it's really that, like, do you feel when you're going to these events now, and keep in mind, I haven't been in Europe until last year, since like 2007, right? So it's been a long time since I've been there. And it was weird being in the Netherlands at that first event. And I was like, oh my God, there's like the first 40 teams. This is so weird. There's only 40 teams. But then to go to Birmingham and the CPPS going on at the same time as the NXL, there was a lot of people there. It felt more like an event, if you will. And then going to Drew and having all the Nations Cup teams, and then the event was awesome, right? And I think Drew's special because you have that backdrop of where the spectators sit, and when they yell, and it all literally is just focused on the field. Yes. And you're coaching, or playing. Obviously, as a coach, I don't know what it sounded like on the field, but it was loud where I was. So if it's loud where I am on the other side of the field, I just can imagine, as a player, that energy that brings when you can hear the crowd, and it gives it this neat feeling and energy of being like a legitimate professional thing, right? Not this like sideshow spectacle that's happening in some pasture,
Yeah, I think the NXL events did have a good vibe, like I say, especially Birmingham and Drew. But I think that's obviously one of the points of them putting the ECPL on now at Portugal. That'll bring another. I mean, how many teams are actually going to compete there? I don't know, but I'm sure that'll bring another element to the event, and that's what we need. We need nice big events, lots of people spending some money and having a good time and telling their friends and getting people involved. And yeah, that's what we need as a sport.
Yeah, agreed. Well, Matt, is there anything we want to share with you or share with us in the world before we move on to Goran?
No, I think we covered most things. Yeah, thank you very much again for inviting me on, and I look forward to updating you later in the year, maybe.
Do you want to thank your sponsors?
Yes, sorry. Good point. Big thanks to Dye for obviously all our markers, all our kit. We had a good meeting with them in World Cup, so we've got a re-strengthened relationship there. So they're really doing a lot for the team this year. Verse for the paint. Dragonfly Removals, obviously he stepped in and helped out some cash. And that's about it at the moment, I think. But yeah. No, big thanks to those guys. Bart at Verse has been amazing. So, yeah, we're looking forward to a strong season with them.
Bart's a really sweet guy. One of the first people I got to meet when I got to the Netherlands, and really joy to kind of get. Yeah, it was really a pleasure to kind of get to know him a little bit, and really cares about the paint and the players, and yeah, he's a special guy.
Yeah, he's really looked after us this year. So we're looking forward to continuing that relationship and hopefully paying him back with some good results. So yeah.
Well, we wish you the best of luck. Thanks again for taking your time today to hang out and talk about London Attrition, and the expectation is high, so don't let us down.
I'll try not to. Thank you very much, guys.
I wish you all the luck, mate.
Thank you, Clint. I look forward to seeing you. I'm sure you'll be about. So we'll see you, no doubt, very soon.
Take care.
All right, buddy.
So, Joy Division, we have Goran Ahs joining us. Let's go.
Yeah, I'm excited to bring Goran on. Like I really didn't know Goran until Drew. We really SK kind of introduced me, and then we sort of started talking, and then I kind of chased him around a little bit at World Cup, taking photos and just kind of watching what he does and his style. And what a joyful guy, right? Like the fact that he coaches Joy Division is perfect, because that's who he is. He's like always walking around with a big smile, and he seems like he's cracking jokes, and he has a great relationship with his players.
I've known Goran for 15, 20 years, and he's the most nice, friendliest guy you'll ever meet on a paintball field. You've just got to get over the size of the guy. once you look past that, he's
Yeah.
a gentle giant. He's a lovely man.
Well, he is a Viking, so
He certainly is.
Goran, hi.
Go on.
Hello, guys. How are you?
We're
Good,
good.
man.
We're good. How's the weather in Sweden?
Oh, it's cold. It's 10 minus Celsius.
Oof.
So I don't know what that is in Fahrenheit for all you American guys, but it's quite cold.
It's that is very cold. That is very cold. In England at the moment,
Yeah.
it's about -2, -3. So I've still got shorts on. So we're
Yeah.
good. We're good. So kind of
Perfect.
moving on. Joy Division. Wow, what a team! What a name. They've been around for a long
Such a big
time.
legacy.
It is a huge legacy, and they're well known all over the world. They've competed in MPPLs, NXLs, PSPs, etc. And they're a true powerhouse. So it's a pleasure and honor to have you on the show. Kind of looking at your results over the last few years, since 2019, you've had a fifth. The following year was a fifth, a second, a ninth, and then you had a second last season. What grade
Yep.
would you give your 2023 performance overall?
Well over our expectations. This season was supposed to be a rebuild. This and 24 are supposed to be rebuilds because we lost me as a player. We lost the two most important guys, Carl and Knut, structuring the whole thing. And so basically everything we needed was to bring up new guys. Problem is that there are not much to go from in Sweden or Scandinavia, but yeah. So we try to make do. So for last season, everyone saw we had to bring in something or someone with a little bit more experience, and that name became Harrison. And he went super fast into joining the team. Basically, he fell in very good. So
yeah,
a really good match.
From the
You are-
outside
when you
looking
s-
in. Sorry.
When you say Harrison, you mean Harrison Fry, right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Harrison
Okay.
Fry. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to say, from outside looking in, he fitted in fantastically well. He seemed to get on well with the whole team, and obviously he took on how you wanted him to play, and it was fantastic to see. So it was very good. So kind of what's Joy Division? What are they going to have to do to overtake Tauntauns for 2024?
Oh, a lot. They are, in my eyes, they are where we are aiming to be in like 3 years, 2 or 3 years. That's their positioning right now, with consistently having almost the same roster. They have the guys to rely on that's been there for so long. So yeah, but they have kinks in their armor. Like we played them once, actually, only once last year, and that was in the final in Drugs. And if we would have played like we said from the start, that game would have seen completely different. They took a bunch of points in the beginning, and we shouldn't have let them take so many. So that game were our game to lose, so to say, I think.
Agreed.
Yeah.
So
they have a lot more routine, overall in that team, I would say.
So how are you going to work with Joy to overcome that maybe earlier than 2 or 3 years? Obviously you've got a training schedule. You play Revo, is that right, in Sweden?
Yeah. Yes, we do.
So
yeah.
I was going to say, so you get the team together quite often?
Up until next week is actually the first mandatory weekend we have. Up until then, everyone works on their own individual pacing, so to say. But next weekend is our startup. That's week 4. That's the preseason starts. then everyone that are in the team has to be in Falköping, and we have a quite stacked schedule. There's physics tests, there's technique tests, there's some seminars with like how we want to structure everything, the way we structure everything. So it's going to be a lot. And then from there on, there's every week, every player has to play paintball 3 times a week. And every other week, as long as there is a preseason, you have to be in Falköping together with the whole team. And that's up until week 14 then.
Wow. So you've got it all planned out.
Yep. I have the schedule for the whole next season. I can be a bit like controlling in that way. Yeah.
It's your job.
So, yeah. But that is one thing that I looked at. Last season was just like finding a way to do it, and this season will be, next season 24 will be a season where we take what we didn't have last season and we look at what can we do better. And from my perspective, stepping in and doing much more of this will be my work, so to say. That's what I'm going to do to step it up.
Absolutely. Can I ask can you describe a little bit what these tests look like? So you mentioned that they will have some skills tests and things like that. So what do you mean by that?
Me and Carl Carl Samuelson, we will be judging everyone on a scale on technique, and we will judge everyone on a scale in communication, so to speak, as well. It's going to be hard because it's inside. That's going to step it up later on when we can go out, because right now it's like a meter of snow on the outfield, so that's not an option right now. And then I have a former player actually that works as a physio trainer and for the Swedish Army. That's helping me with this, the other part, so to speak. And he's going to do the grading of the strength, the conditioning, and everything about that, like that.
Wow.
Perfect.
So that's the structure we have for that one.
Fantastic. Sounds like you've got it all in hand.
Yeah, we'll see where it leads. So
kind of moving on from there, roster changes. Do you have any roster changes, players going in, coming out this season? I've heard there was a couple of players who look like they might be dads sometime soon. So does that mean
why do they need to reproduce? Yeah, there's no reason for them to reproduce, but yet here we are. Yeah, so Victor actually became a dad in December.
Congratulations.
So he has his hands full. And then Kim, I think it's in March. So it's, especially from Kim, it's really bad planning. But
yeah,
we have to make this.
That's just before the first event.
Really bad planning.
It's so bad planning. I told him, whatever you do, we have something called Midsummer in Sweden. It's the middle of Sweden. And middle of Sweden, in Midsummer, that means that you get your kid in, if you do it on Midsummer, that means that you get your kid in March. And that's so fucking bad.
Oh my gosh.
Shame on him. Do it in this early spring, February. Perfect.
Yeah.
So
okay, so kind of
you didn't listen.
Oh my gosh. This is why I'm so happy you're on the show. Like really bad planning. Like 3 of the dynasty guys are all having kids like in a short period of time.
Yeah.
So they're kind of going through that very similar thing. It's really funny. I just can't imagine SK saying like, "Shame on them. They should have planned better."
Because when you have that many players, you have to stagger it. So one have it in this. And you have,
so they have to like sign
window.
Up. Sign up for. I'm going to have my kid between this period. You can have yours here, and then you can have yours here. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's funny. That's good. So
Well,
all of your
doesn't work that
to
way.
go back to Clint's question, are all of your
Yeah.
players from last year returning?
Knut is stepping down completely. He stepped down in the beginning of the season, but he found a way to come back during the end. But he's stepping down completely now as well. So yeah. But we have added a few, so we have still. It's really new people, but we still have a roster on with 10 people.
Okay.
And does that include
No
Harrison?
new. At the moment, we don't know. There's some structural things going on that makes it hard to fit him into the roster. It's not on our end, and it's not on his end either. But there are things that, makes it hard. We'll see.
Okay.
We would love to have him still, but it's going to be hard to get that.
Is that like a sponsorship problem?
Yeah,
Okay.
It is.
Yeah. That's really common, right? US teams that are sponsored by certain companies, and then they want to go to Europe and play, or vice versa. Like finding a team that fits kind of into that structure of sponsorship things, right? The gun, the clothing, and most importantly, probably the paint, right? I know the gun and the paint are the two big kind of sticky points a lot of times. That's really common, right? But I do hope it works out, because I think, you and Clint both talked about this at the beginning. He seemed like he just fit right in. He came in, his energy was good. You guys' energy is obviously really good. You're laughing and having a lot of fun, again, in a very joyful way, pun totally intended. So, and it seemed like Harrison just kind of slid right in, right, and fit in with the group, and he's a consummate competitor. He wants to win.
Yeah, he is. The one thing that he is the best at is spreading the right energy at the right time, in my opinion. He nails that down very good. It's actually sometimes that I had to listen to what he was doing it with the energy, because sometimes I can be a bit focused on what I have to do, and he's really good. And so if you just listen and just feel his energy, it can be really good. So that has been the best way that we have, the best thing about him this year, in my opinion. He's a good player as well, of course, but that's what I like the most of him. We had our squabbles, him and me, especially in practices and everything, but it is because we're passionate and we want the best where we are. So
yeah,
and I love the energy. It's a guy that comes in that doesn't really have something to do with the team. He comes in with a good energy. I love it.
In Drew, we were going to play the Tauntauns for the semifinal match, and you all, I forget who you guys were going into play, and I was sitting talking. Who?
Virst, I think. Yeah.
Virst.
Semifinal, right? Virst.
Yeah. So we were kind of chit-chatting back and forth and kind of talking shit to each other a little bit. And he kind of said to me, he was like, "Do you really want to piss me off before we potentially have to play each other?" And I said, I literally said, "Yes, I do." I was like, because I want you at your best. If we have to play each other, I want you at your absolute best, because then if we win, I don't want to hear any bullshit. I don't want to hear any excuse of like, like I wasn't feeling good. Like, but when he said it, right away, I was like, holy shit, I wish this kid was on my team. Like his energy is awesome, right? He's also like away from paintball, just a pretty unique, very kind guy. So, well, we hope that works out where he gets to come play with you guys in 2024, because I do think he just fits really well. It makes it makes a lot of sense for him being on your with your group, and obviously it worked. You guys had a great season. So
like I said, he fit right in, and he could have, like the first event, he could have done a lot more, but it did. Like for a pro player, I've seen so many coming over to Europe and come into a team and try to do everything for the team.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, way too much. He did his part, and he did it fucking well. It was really, really good. Not more, not less. He took control when he needed to, and he sat back when he needed to. Yeah, I can't say much more good about him. So, yeah, all love for him.
It's great. Yeah. So you've described a little bit about what your off-season process is going to kind of look like. You're going to go through this sort of testing phase where you're going to measure, strengths and weaknesses of your players, and then what do you do with that information?
First, we try to improve them. In the first step in the preseason, and try to be at our best at the first event. But then it will be, of course, it will be ongoing, and try to over time progress as players overall. What we don't have and what we lack, in my opinion, right now, and it was really, really obvious last season, because during the end of the season in Drugs, it happened, and it was a lot of players being injured. And that is one thing, and that is conditioning. Conditioning. If you don't have the strength and you don't have the ability to play on a high level for a long time, then you will break. And that we need to do our best to minimize. You can't completely rule it out. Like Kim, he is conditioned. He has no problems, but he dropped a bucket of concrete on his foot 3 days before England. I mean, that guy, that guy with timing. Holy crap.
Yeah.
So we can't, like things like that, we can't do much about. But other things like muscle tears or dislocated knees, like Dennis had, we can definitely do something to prevent. Because Dennis' knee, it was so horrible to see. He fell down like a ragdoll, just straight down.
It was against Lucky 15s, wasn't it, in Drew?
Yeah, it was against Lucky.
I'd been shot out at that point, and I see him. He was in the tower with the can in a key position.
Yeah.
And it did not look nice at all.
No. It basically he flinched, and he just the whole knee just got dislocated, and he went down.
Sorry, I don't get with stuff like good. That. I'm like,
But I know the feeling. So,
but you are right. Like most of those kinds of injuries can be prevented. If they're doing a lot of stability things, like I think a lot of athletes, especially young athletes, think they need to go into the gym, lift really heavy things, and then leave. And that's completely counterintuitive to really what we need in paintball, right? It's a lot of doing things on one leg, pulling things backwards to stabilize all of those things around the knee, doing a lot of lateral movements where your hips, get to stay engaged and kind of loose. I tell my guys, hey, like go do yoga. Like doing yoga is huge for you. It's huge, right? It takes care of all of those things around the core. You get all of your stabilizer muscles around the knee. It helps strengthen your ankles. Like it's great for balance, which we use a ton of in paintball. Like doing yoga is huge. So like go lift the heavy things, but then go to yoga. Like you can't just go lift heavy stuff and leave. You're going to get hurt. So totally agree.
There's a lot you can do. You don't need to lift heavy. That has always been my problem, because I had that as a background. I love lifting weights and lifting heavy weights. That's how I destroyed my back. I lifted heavy in deadlifts, and it's just I was in the end of a long training session, and the back just snapped. And since then, I have problems.
I'm 47, right? So I never lift more than 100 kilograms if I'm going to do deadlifts, I never go over 100 kilos ever. Like I can, but there's no point in it. I just feel like I'm going to get hurt and then I'm going to lose 3 months at the gym. I'd rather just lift a little lighter and, be fine. But
yeah, I know it's not needed, but I love that kind of weightlifting.
Yeah.
I love heavy weights.
Yeah.
So
when I was younger, I did too.
Yeah. When I was younger, I played hockey, and it was mandatory to lift weights.
Sure. Yeah. So you talked about kind of the physical things. So when you find those deficiencies, right, you find those things that a player really needs to develop. Are those things then you give that feedback back to the player, and then do you give them a plan on, hey, these are the drills we want you to do leading into the first practice of the layout? What does that timeline look like? And then how do you do it then via Zoom, or how do you do that? Call them?
No, every other week you have to be on in Falköping. You need to be at our indoor field. Sometimes some people can't make it, but to the best of their ability, you have to maintain that, and we expect that you make sure that you can do it. And so, like I said, week 4 next weekend is the first, and week 14 is the last of the preseason workout. From there, we have 2 weeks off, and then week 17 we start with the prep training. That it's outdoor, whether it's snowy or not. We will start, but it shouldn't be snow then. And then we start playing outside, and we prep for the first event. And then the conditioning should be over and just be a maintenance point, so to speak. But I have people that, like, for example, like Johan, the one doing the physio, he's gonna give me the information I need to relate to the players. So yeah.
That's great. It's a good plan.
Yeah. Hopefully it will work.
I mean, you have a great plan. So as long as it's implemented and the guys buy in, hold themselves accountable, I think you're in really good shape. So
I look at that plan, and it's a very Russian plan from teams of the past. I've experienced Arc Chaos and Russian Legion as teams, and that's very much how they scheduled their preseason.
Yeah,
the maintenance during the season. I just feel that if you've got that much implemented already on how you're going to work, you should be able to overtake Tauntauns this season or next season, not in 3 years, because that plan, if executed well, that is a winning plan that you can achieve a win this year, as in the number 1 spot. Because I've spoken to many of the European coaches over the last. No one's got a plan like that implemented, and it's just like I'm wow, that is a solid foundation to win the series this year, not next year, not in 3 years' time, this year. You guys are capable of doing it because you've proven with your results, finishing second overall. You guys played in the NXL World Cup. You're going to draw a huge amount of experience from that. You go into this season to win it, not to think 3 years down the line.
No. We do not go into anything without the mindset of winning something. That's a given. But I have a structural plan, and we have a plan where we need to be in 3 years. 2 years, so to speak. Yeah. Last year included. We still have long-term plans, but to say that we are not aiming for first, that would be the most stupid thing that we can ever do.
Okay,
but we have a long-term plan. Of course, we're going to aim to be first this season.
Yeah.
But we need to see it reliably during a long term. And the biggest thing that I think all teams in especially Europe, where you don't have so to say pro players, that we have just players playing. is to maintain a roster and making that look the same for a long, long time. And that is, in my opinion, really hard because we don't have too much material. I set up a goal to have a training group of 20 people this season to make it as best as possible. We're halfway there. We can't. There's nothing in Scandinavia. Although we have in week 6, I think it was, we have what's it called? We have a tryout, yeah, that people are willing, if they want to be a part of Joy, they can come and show what they got, and if they have what we think are needed, and we can develop that either during a short term or a long term, they are more than welcome to join that roster, like the training roster, so to speak, and then try to take a spot on the main roster, and then finally take a spot in the top 5 as a player.
Is that open to European players, or is that just a domestic tryout?
As long as you see yourself as being able to fulfill what we want from you, that means you need to be fellowshipping every other week during preseason, and the prep weekends are still every other weekend. Like for the first event, weekend 17, it's a prep weekend. Weekend 19, it's a prep weekend, and then week 20 is the first event. For next event, just the same. For next event, just the same. So you have to be in, and in between there, we have 2 weekends that are going to be mid-season. What's it called? Mid-season tests and everything. So you have to be in fellowshipping a lot, or in Sweden a lot. So of course, yeah, you can. As an American player, you're welcome to come, but these are what we expect from players that we are looking at developing throughout the years to be doing, so to speak. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Goran, it's really exciting to hear a coach talk about some of the things that you're talking about with the way that you're measuring and creating assessments for the beginning of the year and then doing that mid-year check is awesome. Like because I do that. I go into the season after reviewing film, and I just took over a brand new group that I've not worked with before. So I examine, I watch every one of their matches, and I create stats around plus minus off the break, the players that went on, what each group's winning percentage is, who got penalties, and at what point in the game did they get penalties. And what I mean by that is like when they got the penalty, were we down points and down bodies, and it's somebody trying to force something to even it back up, or were they just selfish? You know what I mean? Like, so I create all these stats, and then I kind of deliver them to the group, and I tell them, hey, individually, here's kind of what I need you to work on, but holistically as a group at a macro level, here's the places we really need to focus. And then I create the why around it. So we're doing this drill, and it's going to help us fix this. We're doing this drill, and it's going to help us fix this, but also help you individually to fix this deficiency that you have. And then at mid-year, I get to run all those stats again and go, okay, here's where we started, here's where we are, and here's where we're going, right? So the pathway I get to find out, is the pathway right? You're talking about this awesome training schedule you have and whether or not it will work. Well, the wonderful thing about what you've done is you've created a plan around, I'm going to check myself mid-year. I'm going to create another check here to see, is this program that we've put together getting us where we need to go? Or are these practices, these every other week things, did we lose focus, right? Did we lose intention somewhere? Kudos, man. Great job.
Thank you. Yeah, like for the scouting, coming in last season, I've been coached before. I coached when Joy Division was Scorpion. I coached Joy Division, and the year before that, I coached Solid, a Norwegian team that's unfortunately not around anymore. So I've done it before, but coming in this season, I'm so happy actually to have Skinny or Kevin. When I did it before, there was no community at all around coaching. You did your thing and to your best ability try to find something out.
Sure.
This season with yes, both you and me talking a bit, but mostly Kevin, because we talked a lot, and his way of structuring the scouting it's awesome. Before I used the heat map like most people before, but it's so cluttery. It's too much things, so it's not information enough, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And his way of doing it is way better. I think I've found some improvements, but I'm going to talk about that to him first, because this works basically in the breakout and like the first 15 seconds. I think I have something that I'm going to test this season that takes care of the mid game as well in that sheet as well.
So SK's influence in Europe is big, right? Like Matt was just on
for me.
The same for everybody.
Yeah.
So Matt was just on mentioned the same thing. I kind of have switched the way I was statting to using his sheets and have made improvements for me. Things are important to me. Time, right? I've added a place to put time in. I've added a few other things. You know, if a guy hip slides, dives, you know, I put those things in. I've also created a way to put an initial in the spot so I know which player it is. And I share all that stuff. Anytime we make improvements, because Skinny gave it to me, I give all that stuff back to him. I'm like, here's what I've done.
And that's exactly the same promise I gave to him as well. And I'm gonna, like you said, I have arrows. Like if a player goes wide and he goes a higher out, then you make an arrow pointing up, so that he went to this bunker high, or the arrow down is it's low.
Right.
Yeah, so basically,
great. I love it. So when you do that statting, what are you doing with that information? So you stat the team you're about to play, or a team that you're going to see on Sunday, whatever the case may be. What do you do with it when you're done?
When I'm done with that, I look at the film, the game, so to speak, and I look what's happening, and I look at the film with the information I already have on the sheets. They are going to do this with this. When they stand up like this and they do this break, what are their goals for the game? So I watch the game and then I take notes. I write down exactly what that point meant for them, if I can find it out. But normally you can find it a bit out, mostly of it out. And then I try to find tendencies during the whole game. What do they do when they are down? What they do when they are up? And I try to be ahead of them, and then I develop my game during that. But if you can't do that, you have to do it during the game. Then I need to find a way to be faster at doing it. I'm quite good at using the information and sitting down, taking it quite cool and taking it out with a few hours. But I think I need to be better at taking that information during games. I see they do something different because of what they have seen at us, what we are doing, and change that on the go or on the fly. That's what I need to be better at.
So all of us need to be better at that.
Yeah.
Everybody.
You can never stop.
Yeah.
But that, in my opinion, is the thing I can improve the most. And like I used Kevin's way of doing this 2 events now. I need a lot more practice to be able to use it on the fly. But that goes for everything. The heat maps is the same thing. So.
So when you get all this data, and so you've taken your notes, you're then utilizing that for your team meeting, right? You're going to your group and saying, hey, here's the tendencies I see. Here's the spaces they like to be off the break. When it's these two guys, they go in standing up. This guy's shooting cross. This guy's shooting heads up. And so here's how we're going to use that information to develop our game plan, kind of not necessarily around what they're doing, but certainly to stay out of that gun path, right?
Yeah.
You may not change but one thing, right? You may just, instead of running a guy one way, move him over and run him a different way. So you're not necessarily wholesaling your game plan, meaning changing everything, but you're going to use the data to create just more intelligence, right? For your guys, like off the break, and you look down and you see this guy and this guy on this side, this is what they do.
Yep. I've tried different ways as well, or like information has a way that there's a way you can do it, and then it becomes too much information. And finding that, and I've seen, because the first event, I've seen some people doing better with less information. Then in England, I tried to do take a step back with it and give a little bit less information. But I need to find a sweet spot for every person. And I don't think actually that I should have, of course you have to have a structure before all games where you take every player in and say like, this is the rough idea. But I'm taking everything, the players I need to have more information to, so to speak, or a special spot. These players that play this spot, I'm going to tell them that this is what you should be expecting the first 2 points, and so forth, and during the middle game. And because too much information for a player that doesn't have anything to do with that can be too much. Then there's players that need, like when I played, I wanted every information I could get, because that's how I work. I wanted information on Snake side if I played Dorito. If I wanted to, everything. But that's just how I work. And finding out which player needs what, that's the big thing to do. How do you?
That's the psychology of what we do, right? Yeah, that's the psychology, is beginning to understand which guy on my roster needs all of this and which guys on my roster only need pieces. Right?
Yeah.
Like which ones of my, I have some guys who just want to overcomplicate the shit out of it and make it way more than it has to be. And I'm like, man, I can give you all this. There's no way you're putting this all together in your head, but, in the first 15 seconds, but they want to know. So,
they want to know, but sometimes you should tell them that you will not gain from me giving you this information.
Absolutely.
And if I give you too little information, then of course, then it's on me. Then for the next time, I give you more. But
for me, I do it. It totally depends on my group, right? It depends on the guys that I'm coaching and what level, like what stage of the building blocks we're in. With Austin Notorious and FSU, most of the time with FSU, literally I was meeting 3 guys the weekend before the tournament. Literally, hi, I'm Ryan. I have no idea who they are. I'll just tell you, like, and this is not me tooting my own horn, but what I was able to do with those groups in Europe was a miracle. Like, I'm meeting 3 to 4 players at every event who I have no idea who they are. Like, I'm shaking their hand and introducing myself. So for us to do what we were able to do, was pretty good, Obviously, obviously at the last event, when you have a talent like, Leo Smoltrov, who didn't want to play the snake, who was really interesting, that you're like one of the top 5 snake guys in the world, but you don't want to be in the snake. Okay, man, I'll just let you play in back center and you can go wherever you want. Right. Because I needed him on the field. And I had Ryan Hoskinson, who was playing really well in the snake. So it wasn't as big a deal that he didn't want to go. But before the Tauntauns match, I wanted to switch some things around and put Leo in first and then have Ryan follow. Like 15 seconds before the first point, 15 seconds, he comes over and says, Coach, I know go to the snake. And I was like, I just asked you if you would go and you said yes, and that's also like he and I, because we hadn't worked together a lot before, trying to figure each other out still. by the time we got to that match with the Tauntauns, I knew enough to where I could put guys kind of in the places where I knew that they could help us be successful. But the reality is I was still concerned about if we get drug into long points, we're not going to win those because we don't have any continuity. We don't have enough time together as a group for them to win those points. I don't know if you looked at the number of preliminary points we played, but it was 47.
That was a lot. Yeah.
A lot, right? Because I knew if we get into slow points, we're going to lose. So
let's see here.
I ran guys all over the place, so but as far as the information and how I utilize it, it's very similar to what you do. I take bits and pieces for the guys I know who need a little, and I put that into kind of what my team meeting is going to look like. And then I put the really detailed stuff for the guys who need a lot. And we talk about that one-on-one or in a small group, right? I'll give them like, hey, here's the big picture of how we're going to play this match. These two guys do this. And so I want, instead of running you again through this seam, we're going to run you through this one. So we stay out of the way of that gun. And then maybe we're going to pick on that guy a little bit from the back center. But like you, I don't make wholesale changes. I go into a match playing the way we know that we want to play the field. And if I'm wrong, we're going to lose more than we win. But if I'm right and we stick to the plan and we don't worry about the weird things that happen, a guy makes a really good move and shoots 2 or 3 guys, we're not all of a sudden going to change our plan because that guy did that, right? We're going to stick to the schedule, stick to the script. And maybe we change, hey, when you get here, just make sure you're keeping an eye on that, right? But as long as I feel like if we do the right thing most of the time, we're going to win most of the points. So I try not to make too many wholesale changes like you.
Yeah. The most important thing is to get 5 people doing the exact same thing for the same goal. You don't have to be the best on the field. You don't have to be the fastest or the smartest. You just have to be doing it together. And you do your part, nothing more, nothing less. Then we come, of course, there's something that's called the magic of the end game. Like, for example, the movement that Margot made in the last seconds of the game that won. To be the guts to do the move back against 3 people in the exact same thing. The timing comes with routine, but the guts to do that moving back from such a open spot, because the tower was seen as long as they come to the mid game and they got some positioning. The tower was open, was nothing covering it. So yeah, those things you can't do. Then you have to be doing things by yourself, and you have to move specially. But the structure is the start of the game, the mid game, and the beginning of the late game. The late game, that's where the individual parts come in mostly, if you don't just destroy it in the mid game.
Totally agree. Yeah, there's a lot of individualism in the way you close, but if you do it well, you have less of that, right? If you have
do it
players
well,
if you do it well, you'll have players who understand who has the ball and what their job is going to become. Either they're the person who's going to take a guy, or again, they're going to take a job from one of the edge guys who can now get to a new place, take the job back, and they kind of flip-flop back and forth. But you do see more of like that individual gumption, like you're talking about with Marcelo's move and kind of the balls to go do something incredibly creative. You see that way more late in the game, right? I always feel like that the real superstars shine when it's closing, right? The guys who are elite at what we do, they're the ones who have a tendency to show up when we're closing games. And I think Clint is one of those guys. Clint is one of those guys that late game I've seen the man win some 2-on-1s and 3-on-1s that he shouldn't have won. First of all, he's really slow, so I don't know how he gets away with it. But he's smart, right? You don't have to be fast.
Exactly.
He's smart, right? And so
I
think Clint is one of those players who really shows up in the late game. So yeah.
And this, when it comes to our sport, this is a big part of why it's so hard for new players to come in, and why there are so many old guys. Like, look at Dynasty. They have like Greenspan and Josh and Oliver are still there around as well. If you just look at that roster, as long as they maintain their physio, there's the mind and the information they have in their head and the ability to close out games. That is still what wins the game when it's so edged on the like so close in the top. And that's why it's so hard for new players, in my opinion, to get in. Like, for example, in hockey, you can base a lot of a roster on new people and still do well. Of course, it's technical, but this is why paintball is so hard to get into, in my opinion, especially in America. In Europe, there's of course a step down because there's not as much long-term routine at the highest level. But to take a spot in America, I don't like, you see it as yourself. It's not a lot of new people, and it's been discussed a lot. I had heard Maddie discussing it a lot, and this is the reason why. To close out these games and win the unwinnable, then you need routine and you need the time in the sport.
Yeah, agreed. Really tough. And also, you know, the paintball gun is the ultimate equalizer. You know, everybody's guns are shooting the same speed. You know, if you can put a good shot on someone, it doesn't matter how old you are. And it doesn't matter if you can go through these 15 and 20 foot, right? 15 and 20 foot gaps. If you realize that I don't have to go, he's going to go, and I'm going to shoot him because I'm better at that. Right. I'm so good at being able to shoot somebody because I can shoot the gap that he's going through versus having to get in a silly gunfight, which I'm probably going to win too, because I have more experience. Right. Yeah. You're exactly right. It is the mind game that is the difference between the top 4 or 5 US pro teams and the rest. It's the mind. Yeah. You did kind of make a statement that I do want to kind of touch on for a second. You were talking about kind of that long-term thing that has happened in America. You guys do have it in Europe. You have it. You're the coach of a team who's been around for decades, right? And then you have the Tauntauns who've been around for decades. And now you've got teams that, I mean, look at, other than you guys' performance on Friday, when you came back Saturday and Sunday, I know you still didn't get the result that you wanted, but you guys looked much better. Like you looked a little bit on Friday, like there was some confusion about kind of what your overall game plan was going to be. And I do want to talk about Fabian as soon as we're done with this, because Fabian was doing things you shouldn't do, right? As a coach, I'm watching him do things and I'm like, I would yell at that guy, but then he gets away with it and he does something really cool, right? So my point is that you have these teams that came over to America and played, and did well, didn't just go in and kind of, look at the year before. All the teams other than the Tauntauns did not look good at all. In 1 year, the improvement that happened with the teams that came over, basically the same teams, plus you. I guess Verst didn't come the year before, but Verst played pretty well. You guys played pretty well. Lucky 15s make Sunday. Tauntauns, of course, get the bye, but still competed at a really high level. So
look at what the result were. They did really good, and they did a great result against the top teams.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I don't know that I would say, certainly not the top 5 or 6 teams in Europe, that there's really that big of a gap. I think those top 5 or 6 teams, if you put them in the American League consistently, and they were coming over, and you as a coach knew those teams the way I know those teams, you're going to be much more competitive because you as a coach are really good.
Yeah, but there you said it. We're not playing on the top level in Europe. all the time, consistently throughout the years. And it is what struck us, and especially the players, what struck us the most was the difference in how you play in America, and being nervous in that situation when you don't feel that you have control, having to move when you shouldn't move. Like the reason we lost all the games was the first 15 seconds. We didn't die in a break, so it's not the first 5. Of course, if you went far, the Ironman game, we thought that field should play faster. We were wrong. So the Ironman game we lost because we had the wrong mindset of it. Then we changed already for the ML Kings game, and then that was just pure nervousness, or being unstructured and not following and doing everything, like I said, everything together. All of a sudden you have someone that has to move throughout a lane in the first 15 seconds when there's already a gun shooting that lane. We don't need to move, especially before the game has set. So stress.
You just literally described the thing that I talk about all the time that's different between American paintball and European paintball. It happens after the first 15 seconds, but literally right after the first 15 seconds. You guys in Europe, one, I think it's because of the pod thing, and two, because I don't think teams are as disciplined in holding space as long as American players, is you guys will break out and then you're in your second and third movements by the 30 to 45 second mark. Whereas Americans, because we hold lanes longer, it's those things really happen at the minute and a half mark. You know, sometimes earlier if it's a quick bump into the snake or a quick bump into the Dorito 2, but rarely do you see, like in Europe, where you have 4 or 5 guys who are in their seconds and thirds within 30 seconds. You know, it just doesn't happen very often.
Yeah, but if you see to what we have done before this season, we are not playing a runner's game. We are playing consistently, doing our job. When we have done that job, then we do something else. Of course, if you have to move to get to the game plan's positions, then of course move. But we are like the tournament we won in 7M. We basically won because we moved after the other team. That was the biggest thing.
You was definitely one of the more defensive teams throughout the last year.
Yes.
I would say disciplined.
Yes.
Disciplined, right? Like you guys in the Netherlands, I watched that match and you looked like the significantly more disciplined team. You went out, did jobs, moved to do another job. It wasn't moving for the sake of taking risk. It was moving to put that gun in a different position to take a job.
Yes.
If you play that way at World Cup, you have that same kind of discipline and mentality going into World Cup. You guys are your results are going to be way different.
Yeah, if we just trust the progress and we are doing what we're supposed to do, then we can accomplish something. But that didn't happen on a regular basis. We had points that was going exactly like we wanted to. Like for example, we played Impact and we played them with 1 point deficit. And they came in second. So we have it in us, but we need to do it consistently. And and like you said, I don't like playing defensive. I like to play, like you said, structured, and I forget it.
If Joey Blute were sitting here, he'd tell you that's winning paintball.
Yeah, I think so too.
It's winning.
Like I saw a huddle, a move of a huddle with Dynasty a few years ago, and I saw Greenspan say, I don't know if he says it every time, but he said something that stuck in my head, and that was, as long as we are 5 players alive, we cannot lose. And that is so true. That's my way of thinking about it and seeing it.
Yeah, it's great.
Fantastic.
Well, so let's talk about Fabian a little bit, because we're kind of doing the World Cup thing. Clint, do you want to talk about this?
Well, I think Fabian had arguably the best tournament I've ever seen him play. You know, he was a menace. He was aggressive. He pulled some crazy stuff out of his ass. And as Ryan said, that he shouldn't even got away with.
Yep.
But
said it. He had a force field around it.
He did, but he had that look in his eyes that he just wanted to go out and kill people and show America what Joy Division is about. And it was fantastic to watch. And like I said, by far, I feel that was his best tournament I've personally seen him in for a long time. But fantastic.
Yeah, he felt at home. He's super awesome. Fabian is, when he has those days, in my eyes, there's no one beating him, because he can do whatever he wants, and it's all from point of feeling in him. He is the most technical guy. He is the best. He has the best snapshots all around, and technical wise, he's awesome. But when he has those days when nothing can go wrong for him, all of a sudden it just clicks, and he becomes like superhuman. And that is something that I want happening more often. But I even think that his lowest points is not bad, because this season he had to take on another position. He had to be a number 2, and in some points even a number 3, because he had the routine, and he stepped up the communication. He is a big part of us doing good this season, because he rolled the communication and he filled in when he needed to. And like in the World Cup, he played a 3. He started like home, I think you call it.
Yeah. Yep.
He started in home in 3, and then all of a sudden he was 50 snake.
Watched it.
Yeah,
watched it several times.
Yeah,
He would take these weird routes too. I'm like, good God, how is he not getting shot? Like, how is this possible? And he did just have a force field. Has he had any opportunities to play in America? Has anybody reached out to him in the off season to see if he wants to come over?
He's had throughout the years people reaching out. Before, he hasn't been in the place of doing it. He's been a bit nervous about it, I think. But this year he's thinking about it. But I think if people want him, they should take him, because he is really, really good. And the biggest part is when he gets told that what he's supposed to do, and he does it, and he just nods his head and, yep, I will do it. And he does it. That has been his a bit of a problem before, but especially for this season, he just, tell me what to do. And I told him, this is what I want, and he just nails it.
That's great.
So yeah. He's been him, Kim, and like we talked in the beginning, Harrison. They've been a good backbone for this season.
Well, I hope Harrison gets to return. And again, man, Goran, I'm terribly impressed with your plan, and I'm super excited to see kind of how you guys develop throughout the season. I think I'm going to be only in Drew, but I will be watching all the matches and kind of keeping an eye on you guys. I took notes of all the things that you said, so that when we have you back on mid-year, after you win the first event, we can talk about how your plan is working. Is there anything you want to share with us before we kind of move on to the last question?
No, not much. I'm really glad to be on here. I really like this show, making it a community for coaches and everyone to speak. Not just coaches, but it makes something that everyone get tied together. things like this. Not only this, but things like this. Because we have felt like we are on an island in Europe. I don't know if I'm only talking to me, but America is over there. They have their thing going, and we are looking at them, and we try to do what we can. But this, especially you starting to bringing on European players with Clint here and European coaches. This is I like it because it becomes this big community together.
It's only going to make paintball stronger, isn't it? As a unity, that like I love.
Yeah.
I'm not a coach, and I love watching the show because coaches are sharing information, which is going to make the opposition stronger. But the coach giving the information is also taking information which makes their team stronger. And like you said, the community amongst the coaches is fantastic, and it will just make paintball even stronger. And I my hat's off to Ryan and to Mike for this.
Yeah, I love this. Yeah, I love this.
It's really
being able to talk to people overseas like this consistently. And I'm gonna say it again, you, Ryan, and especially Kevin. It's been so awesome to be able to see what you guys are doing and how you're doing it, and being able to take the information, do whatever I want with it, basically.
Yeah.
And seeing how the ones that done it for a long, long time, it becomes a shortcut for a guy like me.
Totally. Yeah, that's been the plan all the time is to have coaches who can create resources for everyone and to share ideas about how we're doing things. And we talk a lot about giving it away. And the reason we want to do that is because we all get better, right? If SK and I continue and Mike Bianca, who's, arguably one of the best coaches in the league with what he's done with the Hurricanes after the last few years. When you look at what we're trying to give away, if coaches will take it, implement it, improve it, and their teams get better, it forces us to have to get better, right? We will have to, in order to stay ahead, we'll have to continue to grow and develop and create organic things around new ideas to be able to stay on top, right? And the reality is, if a coach takes what we do and improves upon it and their group gets better and they surpass us, that's great, right? Like, I hope that doesn't happen. I hope I can continue to grow and be a student. But the reality is, at some point, I'm going to walk away from paintball and I want to look back and say, I helped make it better. I helped improve the game, right? And I know Skinny's the same way. Yeah, I know Skinny's the same way, and Mike certainly is the same way. So thank you for that. I really appreciate it. So kind of to finish out, how do you feel like the condition of paintball in Europe first overall is, and then in Sweden? How do you think it is?
Europe are getting a second wind. We have had a really downfall for a few years. There are not as many players anymore that play professional paintball.
Yeah.
There are way few. I would love that. I know that there are more teams than it shows, and I would love that MLP or NXL, whatever it's called now. It's MLP, right?
Well, so Major League Paintball is the body that's kind of over all of these things that are happening, like the summit, and but then the NXL is the tournament itself. But if you look at from a league perspective, underneath Major League Paintball, you have NXL in America, you have NXL Europe, and ICPL. And the WNXL. So that Major League Paintball kind of is the umbrella that covers all of those. And then the NXL, the WNXL, and the ICPL, they're kind of their own thing, right?
Okay. Yeah.
And that's why this show exists, is to bring all those things kind of together.
Yeah, that's perfect. I would like there to be more divisions, because I know there's room for it. But I know I will guess that Cole has his mind on slowly but surely progressing it to where it once was. But yeah, I think
what
there's
do you mean more
room
divisions?
for it. Like for the events, the Droogs event was the only event that there were more than two divisions.
I see. You're talking about more divisional paintball aligned
Lower
with
divisions.
the NFL. Got it.
Yeah,
So
lower divisions.
I mean, really, if you look at it right now, it's just the Portugal event that doesn't offer divisional play because you have the CPPS going on the same weekend as the Birmingham event. And so players, if other teams from other areas wanted to play, they can still, I think, register and play the CPPS, right? You don't have to like.
I don't know. I think some of it's locked. I know what Ainsley does with the Birmingham event. He tries to make it like an old school Millennium event, and the lower divisions of the CPPS play at the same time. But I know some of those divisions are locked because he's very regimental with new players coming into the sport being protected. But I think Goran's kind of trying to say that if, example, the CPPS wasn't on that weekend, that you could have Div 1, Div 2 playing as well as the pros. You know, was it the Netherlands? You just had the pro and semi-pro division, and it was quite a derelict event. You know,
totally, it's absolutely. When I got there and kind of realized because we practiced there, and so I was like, this is it. Like, don't get me wrong, it was a beautiful venue, and it was just a ton of fun, but it did feel like a regional paintball tournament. Yeah, felt like a small regional event. So I know that is a plan, Goran, but they're trying to make sure, and I'm not speaking for Tom. These are just conversations I've kind of had with Tom and with Jason and with Kevin, is that they're really hoping that each one of the country's regional leagues will get stronger so that there is a larger player base because it's terribly expensive to put on an NXL event. And the other problem that they had is there's very few fields that have more than 2 airball fields. So they then have to bring in the structure to build out 2 to 3 more fields, which then creates a significantly larger expenditure that almost makes it would make the entry fee almost unattainable for a lot of teams. So they're kind of in this weird place where I know they want to offer it, but then they have structural problems with not having enough paintball fields that have more than 2 airball fields. And then again, the additional expense of having to like bring it in, set it up, and all the infrastructure that goes into that.
I know.
Would make it tough. So tell a couple of more paintball fields over there to build a few more airball fields, and then I think they would probably make it happen.
I know it's not easy just to do it. Of course, then there needs to be a structure behind it. So I just say what I would like to see and what I would like to hope it be, because a few years back, Europe was on a big uprise, and we had a lot of teams. And then it just fell through. And I can just speak for like Sweden, where I'm coming from. Sweden, in my opinion, paintball is dead. It's us and maybe a few teams, but they don't have anywhere to play. So they are, we have our association in Falköping. We have like 30 players, I think. And then there's scattered around the world, around Sweden. So I think we have like players that could fill teams, I think like 100 to 150 players that might be able to think to play professional paintball again, or new players starting to play it. It's way dead. Like before Corona, the 2 years before Corona, we had in Swedish Masters, we had 70 teams. Now we don't even have it. There's no space for it. There's not enough teams.
So I think you just maybe answered part of the question about divisional paintball, at the NXL events, because it takes all of those regional things to occur in order for there to be a need for the national thing. Right? Like if we didn't have all of these regional tournament series in America, we wouldn't have the teams we have playing the NXL. There would be 20 pro teams and whatever, 18 or so semi-pro teams, and then, whatever, 20 D2 teams and 30 D3 teams. And I think we had 600 and some odd teams at World Cup. It was the largest event ever in the history of paintball. It was massive. We had more female players ever playing. We had more youth playing than ever. But that doesn't happen without the regional leagues. In Texas, man, right now there are 5 regional tournament series that are doing really well, that have 70 to 100 teams every event. That's crazy. That's crazy, right?
Awesome.
That's one state.
Awesome.
One state. So,
I mean, I know that what needs to be happening, and I'm not saying that just do it and everything will come. I just want that it comes back to that point, and I know that everyone needs to do as much as they can to make it happen. But it becomes a lot of things.
It becomes the responsibility of you, right? It's your responsibility and Clint's responsibility, and the guys from Bad Boys in the Netherlands, and it becomes your responsibility to take that role of figuring out how can we create a local tournament series that's going to be meaningful and welcoming to new players, like you were talking about Ainsley protecting the new player, where we can protect those young folks when they come in, where they have a great experience and we don't scare them away. Because we all know because we've been there. As soon as someone gets beyond the fact that they're going to get shot with a bath bead at 200 miles an hour, and they start to figure out how kick ass our community is and how wonderful it is to be a part of and not apart from, it's pretty special. The thing that makes us special is the community. And once we get people in and they get a taste of what that community is, and then they get the love for paintball, it's over. We all know. I've been doing this since 1993 and I've retired 3 times, and here I am.
Yeah, because you love it. When I was,
because I love
the same thing for me.
Exactly right.
Yeah. Because when I injured myself so I couldn't play anymore, I tried that season, 2 seasons ago. I tried it at my best ability, but everything I did, it just hurt, and I started to hate paintball.
Right.
And then when I said that this is it for me, I'm not going to play anymore, then I needed to sit down with myself, and I needed to think, is this the end? Is this the stop for me? I still love, and I realized that I still have love for the game, and I really, really love this sport. It's been my whole life since I first saw it. It's really love it.
Yeah, it's pretty special.
It is.
So, well, it's obvious that you love it because the amount of energy and time you're putting into planning is indicative of your, love for it. So really exciting to see again, man. Thank you so much for coming on and taking part of your day away to hang out with us. It's always weird again with the time difference, trying to get these things scheduled out well. And I appreciate you coming on. So Clint, you got anything else you want to talk about?
No, not really. Just want to wish you and the Joy guys the best of luck for 2024, and hope to see you guys back at World Cup at the end of the year.
Yeah, same to you. Thank you so much for having me on.
Hang out in the green room. We want to talk to you for a little bit as soon as we're done.
Sure thing. Yeah.
All right. Wow.
What a guy.
What a great show, man. What a great show. Yeah, I'm incredibly impressed with his plan, right? Like if he can implement, get the guys to buy in, I just don't know how they can't be successful. You know what I mean? Like they have to be successful.
Yeah. It's fantastic to hear his story, because I know him personally and I didn't know how much he puts into Joy Division with his schedule. And it's just, I can't wait for this show to come out for the Europeans to see what it's going to take to beat Joy Division for this year. Tauntauns need to watch out. I know they work hard, but Joy sound like they could be the team to beat with that.
I mean,
plan.
It's certainly the best plan I've heard so far. Right.
Yeah.
So really impressed. So thank him and Matt both for coming on, spending some time with us today. Thank you everyone for tuning in to the special European edition of the Coaches Show. We hope to make this a more regular thing. If you love what we're doing and what we're trying to do, Make sure that you like the video, leave a comment, and make sure you subscribe to Major League Paintball. Click that bell so you get notified when we make these premieres go live. And special thanks to Jake Jones, Alex Sorensen, and Major League Paintball. And as always, be responsible.
What that is? Discipline. Selfish.
No joke. We're legitimate.
Fucking do this? Then do it. Do it 100%, because I'm trying to.
We recognize that we are limitless.
You gotta be a champion, become a champion, right? Winning is a habit because we create habits that lead to good execution and success.